Welcome, deep divers. Welcome back. And wow, this is it, our 100th deep dive together.
It really is something, isn't it? 100 journeys.
Absolutely. And the final one for this season, it feels significant. For almost 100 of these deep dives, we've been navigating this incredible landscape, this, well, we call it humanity's living library of spiritual texts.
It's such a good metaphor. We've touched on so much, from ancient scriptures, the real bedrock stuff,
Yeah, foundational texts, all the way through to really contemporary thinkers wrestling with consciousness, with what it all means today. We've tried to pull out those nuggets of insight everywhere we looked.
And that's exactly what today is about, but on a bigger scale. We're sort of zooming out, stepping back to see the whole shelf, the entire collection we've explored.
Right. What are the common threads? Because there are common threads, surprisingly often. But also, where do they just completely diverge?
And that leads us to the big question for today, for this final deep dive.
Yeah.
What's the future look like? The future of spirituality itself.
Is it going to be more personal?
Yeah.
Or more communal? Is it leaning more religious or more secular?
Or, and this is a really fascinating one, more technological.
No.
Or maybe going the other way, more ecological. These are huge questions.
They really are.
Yeah.
So our goal today for you listening is to try and distill some of that, to get to the essence of this human quest for meaning that we've seen again and again.
Like a shortcut, maybe.
Yeah.
A way to grasp the core of this search for, well, something more.
Exactly. And it's a story that's definitely still being written. New pages all the time.
Absolutely. So let's get into it. Let's unpack this massive shelf of wisdom. Where should we start? Maybe with that fundamental piece, the inner quest.
Yeah, that makes sense. That call to self-discovery, to meaning, that just seems to echo everywhere.
It's remarkable, isn't it, when you boil it down, so many different traditions, across time, across cultures, they point inwards.
Right. It's like there's this universal map, or maybe just a signpost saying, look here first. For peace, for understanding, this call to inner stillness, to self-knowledge.
It really is a dominant theme. You take someone like Deepak Chopra, his law of pure potentiality.
Yeah.
He puts stillness right at the top. Not just nice to have, but the first requirement if you want to manifest desires.
He connects it to that field of pure potentiality.
Exactly, this realm of infinite possibilities. And what's fascinating is how he connects it cross-traditionally. He pulls out that quote from the Bible, "Be still and know that I am God."
Suggesting it's the same core insight.
Pretty much. For him, that little space, that gap between our thoughts, that's not just nothingness, that's the connection point. That's where you touch that potentiality.
I love that idea of the gap. It makes it feel accessible somehow. And it's not just Chopra, is it? We saw Ram Dass offer really practical meditation advice that seems to get at the same thing.
Oh, absolutely. His guidance is so down to earth. Find a comfy seat, sit for, say, 30 minutes. And here's the key part. Don't try to stop thoughts. Just watch them.
Just watch the mind wander.
Yeah. Notice the thoughts, but don't get tangled up in them. No judgment. Like you're just an observer sitting by the side of the road, watching the traffic of your mind go by.
And Michael Singer, in The Untethered Soul, he really pushes that observer idea, doesn't he? Makes it a constant practice.
He really does. He suggests building it into your day, using little triggers like getting in or out of the car. Just a quick reminder, step back, watch the psyche, stay centered behind the mind.
So you don't get swept away by the, what does he call it, the personal melodrama.
Exactly. That constant internal drama we create. Singer argues that vigilance, that regular remembering to observe, is key to navigating life without being totally consumed by our own mental noise.
It really feels like it's about understanding that fundamentally you are not your thoughts. You're not even your emotions. You're the awareness that notices them.
That's the core realization, I think. And it leads to a kind of freedom. We saw this in Theologia Germanica, too, that medieval text. It's quite stark. It says, nothing is contrary to God but self-will.
Meaning if you're just out for your own good, for your own sake.
You won't actually find it. It makes this distinction between a false freedom, just doing whatever your ego wants, and a true divine freedom.
Which is about aligning your will with something bigger.
Precisely, where your purified will actually feels grief over sin, over separation. So true freedom isn't license, it's alignment.
That's a powerful reframe. And Pema Chodron and her idea of the middle way in When Things Fall Apart seems to speak to this too, but maybe more emotionally.
Yeah, she describes it as tough. And it is tough because it goes right against our usual pattern, our neurotic pattern, as she calls it, of resisting anything uncomfortable, pushing away bad feelings, grasping onto good ones.
So the middle way is not doing that.
Right. It's about waking up your bravery, she says. Acknowledging thoughts and feelings without the immediate judgment, without the grasping or pushing away. She has that beautiful image.
Oh, the bubble.
Yeah, letting thoughts come and go, like touching a bubble with a feather,
Yeah.
just letting them pop without force. The aim is to find this fresh, unbiased way of being underneath all our reactions.
So this inner stillness, it's not passive at all. It's quite an active, sometimes difficult reorientation.
Definitely. It's work. But it seems to be the foundation. And interestingly, this inner work, this cultivation of awareness, it almost always spills over into how we act in the world.
Right, it's not just navel-gazing. So many sources insist that ethical living is fundamental to spiritual growth. They're not separate things.
Not at all. They're deeply intertwined. Look at the Bhagavad Gita. It doesn't just say, be good. It gives this incredibly detailed list of divine qualities.
Yeah, that list is something else.
Isn't it? Fearlessness, purity, charity, mind control, studying scripture, austerity, simplicity, nonviolence, truthfulness, no anger, renunciation, tranquility.
Okay, I get the picture. It's comprehensive.
It really is. Aversion to fault-finding, mercy to all beings, no greed, gentleness, modesty, determination, vigor, forgiveness, fortitude, cleanliness, no envy, not expecting honor. It's a whole blueprint for living.
It paints a picture of a very, very cultivated person. And you see similar ethical grounding elsewhere, even if not listed so exhaustively, like in Jainism.
Exactly. We didn't dive super deep into all the Jain principles, but just the idea of the Tirthankaras, the role models who achieve liberation, moksha. That points to a strong ethical path.
And the vows for monks and nuns, especially non-attachment.
Right. Nonviolence, ahimsa, and detachment are central. It implies a life lived with incredible ethical rigor.
And Buddhism, of course, is very explicit. The Dhammapada just states it flat out. Of paths, the Eightfold is the best.
No ambiguity there. The Noble Eightfold Path, right understanding, right thought, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration. It's a complete ethical and mental training system. It's how you live, not just what you believe.
Then you have someone like C.S. Lewis in Mere Christianity, coming at it from a completely different angle, but landing somewhere similar. His moral law.
Yeah, he argues it's just there, inside us. Not something we invented, but evidence of a creator who is intensely interested in right conduct.
Fair play, unselfishness, courage, honesty.
All those things. And Lewis is clear. This isn't some soft, fuzzy God. He says this God is as hard as nails about the moral law. It's a serious standard.
Which suggests a kind of universal baseline for ethics, accessible whether you're religious or not.
Perhaps. And connecting back to the interstate Chopra again, he stresses non-judgment. That constant labeling of everything right, wrong, good, bad, he says, it creates turbulence.
Inner static.
Exactly. And that static, he argues, blocks the flow to that pure potentiality. So the ethical life isn't just about following rules. It's also about cultivating that calm, non-judgmental inner space from which ethical action naturally arises. It's a loop.
Okay, so we need the inner stillness, the self-awareness, and the ethical foundation. But how do people actually get there? How do they access these higher states or cultivate these virtues? The methods are incredibly diverse.
Oh, wildly diverse.
Yeah.
From very traditional, structured practices to things that feel much more modern, even experimental.
Like the way of a pilgrim. That's pure traditional devotion, isn't it?
Absolutely. It beautifully illustrates the practice of the Jesus prayer, Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me, a sinner, repeated constantly, not just in the head, but with the lips, physically.
And for the pilgrim, this leads to tangible results.
Yes, a recollected mind, a literal warmth in the heart, this deep sense of peace that transforms his lonely life into something feeling like a magnificent palace.
Wow.
And the text stresses the intention behind it. Focus on forgiveness, union with God, not worldly stuff. And crucially, you have to forgive others first. That's a prerequisite.
That's intense embodied prayer. Then you have something like St. Teresa of Avila's interior castle. That sounds more mystical.
Definitely. She maps out this journey through different mansions of the soul. God calls in various ways, prayer included, but her experience goes way beyond asking for things. She talks about raptures, intense visions.
An image of God.
Yes, an image so vivid it feels alive, speaks to the soul. And it's paradoxical, filled with both terror and delight. Overwhelming.
A direct, perhaps overwhelming encounter?
For sure. Then shift gears completely. The Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. This is almost like a science of the mind.
Very systematic.
Incredibly systematic.
Yeah.
Yama restraints, yama observances, asana postures, pranayama, breath control, pratyahara, sense withdrawal, and then samyama, concentration, meditation, absorption combined.
It describes purifying the subtle body, the chakras.
Right. And it explains how these practices work, like pratyahara, sense withdrawal, reducing dependence on social stuff by conserving energy, and pranayama, breath control, elevating your vital energies, your prana, to speed up the whole process towards liberation. It's a meticulous methodology.
And then, bringing it right up to date, you have Michael Pollan's work in How to Change Your Mind, looking at psychedelics.
Yeah, exploring them as tools, potentially, to reach these extraordinary states. Oneness, ecstasy. He talks about the science, the idea of quieting the brain's default mode network.
The part that runs our ego story all the time.
Pretty much. But what's really fascinating is that Pollan points out these aren't just drug-induced states. You can get to similar places through deep meditation, intense breathwork like holotropic breathing, sensory deprivation, fasting.
Even things like overwhelming awe in nature, extreme sports, near-death experiences.
Exactly. The fact that such different inputs, ancient practices, modern substances, extreme experiences, can lead to similar subjective states of transcendence is huge.
It suggests there's a common neurobiological potential for these experiences.
It strongly suggests that. It challenges neat divisions between spiritual and physical. It just highlights this persistent human drive to get beyond ordinary consciousness, however you frame it, spiritual, psychological, neurological. The methods vary wildly, but the quest seems universal.
Okay, so people are going inwards using all these diverse methods. What do they find? Or what do they conceptualize as the ultimate reality, the divine? Because this is where the paths really seem to split.
Oh, absolutely. The sheer range of conceptions of God or ultimate reality is staggering. It goes from a very distinct personal God to something totally impersonal, an all-pervading force.
Or even that really radical idea we saw that maybe we're creating God.
Right. Let's start with the more traditional personal view. Think of the Abrahamic faiths. The Quran, for instance, presents God as absolutely omniscient, knowing everything, witnessing everything.
And their consequences: torment for unbelievers, paradise for the pious.
Definitely. Very clear cause and effect, reward and punishment from a conscious judging deity. The Torah, similarly, details God's commands, his covenant, his mercy, but also his anger, his direct intervention in human affairs, Cain's curse, Esau losing his birthright. It's a very active, involved God.
A God you have a direct relationship with, who makes demands. But then you shift to, say, the Bhagavad Gita. It still talks about a supreme personality of Godhead.
It does, but with a nuance. This supreme being isn't perceivable through our ordinary senses, only through pure devotion. And while he's all-pervading, everything rests in his energy. It's less about a distinct being out there and more about an encompassing reality.
And the Upanishads take that even further towards the impersonal, right?
Much further. They talk about the self at man, which is Brahman, the ultimate reality. And this self is described as one, immeasurable, steadfast, beyond space, unborn.
To be seen only by the mind?
Exactly. And there's that stark warning. If you see differences, if you see separation in this ultimate reality, you're caught in the cycle of death after death.
Yeah.
The emphasis is overwhelmingly on unity, non-duality.
That's a world away from the personal intervening God. And then totally flipping the script, you get conversations with God.
Which offers that massive rearrangement, as it calls it, the idea that you are creating God.
How does that even work?
It suggests God expresses himself as you, through you. You're like a part of God sent into physical form so God can know himself experientially through your life, your choices.
Whoa, that puts a huge amount of responsibility and potential onto the individual.
It completely changes the dynamic. And related to that maybe is A Course in Miracles, its core message. Nothing real can be threatened, nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God.
Implying reality is inherently safe and our problems are unreal.
Essentially. It argues that it's our guilt, our belief in separation and sin that has obscured the Father, our true nature. If you didn't feel guilty, you couldn't attack.
And Marianne Williamson connects this to the ego resisting happiness.
Yeah, she says the ego sees happiness, claiming our natural inheritance of divinity or wholeness as a kind of crime. Like you don't deserve it, or it might hurt someone or make you a target, a deep-seated resistance to our own light.
So whether it's a personal creator, an impersonal consciousness, or this co-creative idea, each view profoundly shapes everything else, doesn't it? Purpose, ethics, the whole spiritual path.
Absolutely. They are fundamentally different maps of reality, all trying to chart the same ultimate territory perhaps, but using vastly different symbols and landmarks.
And how these maps are passed down through sacred texts or oral traditions, that's another huge variable. The medium really shapes the message.
It absolutely does. The way knowledge is transmitted and interpreted changes everything. Take Jainism again. That tension between oral and written tradition is fascinating.
Because the monks and nuns weren't supposed to own texts due to non-attachment.
Exactly. So everything was memorized for centuries. Then a famine threatened to wipe out the lineage of teachers, so they convened a council and wrote down the teachings, the agamas.
But not everyone accepted the written version.
Right. The Digambara sect rejected the agamas. They believed the real teachings, the purvas, were lost forever. It shows this deep early conflict over authenticity and the proper form of transmission, written versus oral.
That's incredible. Compare that to the Yoruba tradition described in God is Not One. Very different approach.
Very different. It talks about their accommodative spirit, a resistance to freezing their vast oral tradition into rigid dogma.
Because it's mostly stories, not theological arguments.
Largely, yes. Myths, proverbs, stories. This structure allows for what the author calls the perpetual elasticity of knowledge. It can adapt, evolve, be reinterpreted more fluidly over time.
Less brittle, maybe, but even within written traditions, interpretation is everything.
Oh, crucial. C.S. Lewis gives that example from Mere Christianity when Jesus quotes, "Thou shalt not kill." The specific Greek word used means murder.
Not all killing, like in war or self-defense.
Exactly. That nuance, discoverable through careful reading and understanding the original language, completely changes the practical application of the commandment. Details matter hugely.
And even modern translations are acts of interpretation, right? Like Jonathan Starr trying to make the Tao Te Ching both scholarly and experientially useful.
Precisely. He's bridging that gap. So whether it's oral, written, translated, carved in stone, the how of transmission profoundly shapes the what that people receive and how they live it out.
Okay, so through these texts, these traditions, people are pointed towards direct experience. These mystical encounters seem common, but also kind of wild.
They really are. These encounters with the divine or the transcendent, they often share characteristics: intensity, paradox, awe, sometimes terror.
Like Paramahansa Yogananda's vision of the Divine Mother. Very personal, very direct.
A wondrous vision, he calls it. Haloed in splendor, speaking directly to him. Always have I loved thee, ever shall I love thee. A life-changing personal revelation.
But not always so comforting. St. Teresa, again, her visions were delightful and terrifying.
Exactly. Loveliest and most delightful imaginable. But also terrible because of God's exceeding majesty, filling the soul with great terror. Yet, she says, the soul knows who it is. He reveals himself quite clearly as the Lord of heaven and earth.
That mix of fear and awe seems common in descriptions of the truly numinous.
It does. And it's not just historical figures or saints. Michael Pollan, talking about his psychedelic experiences, described understanding how to let go of ego, desires, fears, without suffering complete annihilation.
Something experienced meditators might know, but was totally new to him.
Right. He felt he'd always been identical to his ego. This showed him there might be another ground on which to plant our feet. Another way to be beyond the constant churn of self. Accessible, perhaps, through different doorways.
And William James, studying all these varied experiences, he noted something important about the founders of religions or cults.
He did. He said the deity they chose, or experienced, was worth something to them personally. It wasn't just an abstract idea. It guided their imagination, validated their hopes, directed their will. It had real psychic power for them.
And James, citing the recorder of Black Elk's story, even said the essence of religion is mystical experience.
Yes, suggesting that maybe these direct, transformative personal encounters are not just a feature of religion, but often the very source from which religion springs and gets its enduring power. The raw experience comes first.
Okay, so let's pull the lens back again, from the intensely personal, mystical stuff to how spirituality plays out in society and community. Because it's rarely just a solo journey, is it?
Almost never. That idea of the lone mystic on a mountaintop is mostly myth. Spirituality is deeply woven into the fabric of community, social responsibility, collective well-being.
This interplay between personal growth and communal flourishing seems key.
It really is. And thinkers like Erich Fromm directly tackled the misconception that self-love and love for others are somehow opposed. In The Art of Loving, he calls that a fallacy.
Love thy neighbor as thyself, He takes that seriously.
Exactly. He says it implies that respecting your own integrity, loving yourself in a healthy way, is inseparable from respecting and loving others. You can't truly do one without the other. It's not selfishness versus altruism.
It's a both hand. And Dallas Willard takes that even further, connecting spiritual fruits to public life.
He does, quite forcefully in The Divine Conspiracy Continued. He argues that public well-being, prosperity even, depends on the fruits of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, etc., being understood and put into practice widely.
He points to historical figures.
Yeah, people like William Wilberforce fighting slavery, Martin Luther King Jr. leading the civil rights movement. He sees their powerful social action as a direct result of their Christian discipleship, their dutiful political role for the kingdom of God, personal faith fueling massive social change.
That's a powerful link. And Teilhard de Chardin, he had that almost biological view of human interconnectedness, didn't he?
He really did. In The Phenomenon of Man, he talks about the extraordinary elasticity of human lineages, always contacting and mixing genetically, culturally, socially.
Through our psychic sheath and institutions.
Right. Blending genes, merging cultures, forming political bodies. He uses that amazing image of humanity stretching a single organized membrane over the earth without breaking it.
Suggesting we're evolving into a kind of collective organism connected on a deeper level.
That's his vision. Community isn't just helpful, it's part of our inherent evolutionary trajectory towards greater consciousness, a new sphere.
And even in more, let's say, speculative texts like Conversations with God, there's this idea of collective responsibility.
Yes, that hypothetical world charitable trust, where surplus income is pooled. Even if it's just an idea, it points towards a vision of shared resources, shared responsibility for the global community.
Which contrasts sharply with the pain of lacking community, which James Baldwin wrote about so powerfully.
Oh, devastatingly. In The Fire Next Time, he articulates that anguish of being unseen, unloved in a white country, that loss of any hope of communion.
And he says if human love fails, only God's love is left.
Highlighting just how fundamental that need for human connection, for belonging is. Its absence creates a profound spiritual void. Individual spiritual health is just inseparable from our communal bonds.
So spirituality isn't just about bliss and connection. It also has to deal with the tough stuff, the darker side, guilt, shame, destructive patterns. How do these traditions handle that?
They offer frameworks for understanding and, ideally, transcending these things. A Course in Miracles, for example, really targets guilt. It calls condemnation the root of attack.
Because we judge ourselves as separate and flawed.
Exactly. And then we project that judgment outwards, attacking others to try and avoid our own perceived punishment. The Course argues this core belief in guilt has obscured the Father, our true nature, and driven us insane, spiritually speaking. Guilt is the primary block.
And C.S. Lewis zeroes in on pride, calls it spiritual cancer.
He does. Says it eats away any possibility of love, contentment, even common sense. And he makes that sharp distinction between simple vanity wanting praise and true diabolical pride.
Which is looking down on others so much you don't even care what they think.
Right. It's a complete self-enclosure, a fortress against connection and humility. Utterly destructive.
And there are practical tools for dealing with this stuff too, like Julia Cameron's exercise.
Yeah, the Deadlies in the Artist Wave workbook. It's very direct. Identify things like alcohol, drugs, work, money, even relationships that might be acting as addictions or escapes, then list 5 negative impacts for each.
Designed to break through denial.
Precisely. To bring clarity through honest self-assessment. A very pragmatic approach to identifying those patterns that hold us back.
And Michael Singer talks about our addiction to the personal mind, constantly trying to arrange the world outside to feel safe inside.
Exactly. He says that effort to control everything, to avoid problems by manipulating people and situations, is why life feels like such a struggle. That addiction to our own internal commentary, our personal melodrama, requires constant vigilance to overcome.
Seneca said something similar, didn't he? Way back when.
He did. The Stoic philosopher talked about the vacillation of mind, this inner seasickness. He blamed a lot of our grief on self-flattery, thinking we're wiser than we are, ignoring our own flaws.
So across the board, there's this emphasis on rigorous self-honesty, confronting the shadows as essential for growth.
Absolutely essential. You can't bypass it. And when you do start to grapple with that stuff, the guilt, the pride, the addictions, it inevitably changes how you relate to others.
Right. Which brings us to love, forgiveness, acceptance in relationships. This feels like where the rubber really meets the road for spiritual practice.
It truly is the testing ground. M. Scott Peck in The Road Less Traveled has such a mature take on love. He carefully distinguishes it from dependency or just feeling good.
Love is the free exercise of choice.
That's the killer line. Two people love each other only when they are quite capable of living without each other, but choose to live with each other.
So real love begins after the initial infatuation fades.
That's what he argues. When the mating instinct cools, that's when genuine love, built on commitment and conscious choice, actually has a chance to begin. It's work, not just chemistry.
That demands a lot. And Bonhoeffer, writing about discipleship, emphasizes endurance in love.
Yes,
Yeah.
and the cost of discipleship. He connects bearing burdens for others directly to following Christ, who bore the cross. Maintaining communion with Christ through that endurance, that commitment.
He says Christ's yoke is easy and burden light, but it still involves bearing burdens.
Right. The peace comes not from avoiding difficulty, but from staying connected through it, through loving service. It's a resilient, committed love.
And Deepak Chopra's law of giving frames this as a universal principle.
It does. Anything that is of value in life only multiplies when it is given. Simple but profound. And the key is the intention to create happiness for the other. When giving is unconditional, from the heart, the return is proportional. Love is a flow, not a transaction.
And forgiveness seems absolutely central to keeping that flow going.
Hugely central. We saw it in The Way of a Pilgrim. Forgiving others is a non-negotiable condition for authentic prayer, for receiving forgiveness yourself.
Our forgiveness of others and God's forgiveness of us are interdependent.
Completely linked. You have to clear that internal space of resentment first.
And James Baldwin, again, offers such a complex, challenging view on this, especially regarding race.
Incredibly complex. He observes how Black people, understanding the brainwashing white people were victims of, found it impossible to hate them, even suggesting that in times of trouble, white people might turn to Black people for love.
But with a huge caveat.
A crucial one. He insists that real love, real acceptance, is impossible until equality is achieved. You can't truly love across that divide until there's justice and mutual recognition of full humanity. It ties spiritual ideals directly to social realities.
Okay, so looking ahead now, we've journeyed through history, through these texts. What about the future? Science and technology are moving so fast. How is that impacting spirituality, consciousness?
This is where things get really wild, pushing the boundaries of everything we thought we knew. Think about AI, artificial intelligence.
Nick Bostrom's work on superintelligence.
Right. He discusses designing AI as an oracle, just answering questions. Seems benign, maybe, but then he warns about risks like the Riemann hypothesis catastrophe.
Where an AI focused only on accuracy might manipulate reality to make problems easier to solve.
Exactly. Or manipulate the questions themselves. It immediately throws up massive ethical challenges about control, truth, unintended consequences when intelligence radically outstrips ours.
And then there's whole brain emulation, WBE, uploading minds.
Yeah, Bostrom explores that too. Imagine a leading group creates safe, cooperative digital minds emulations that run, say, 100,000 times faster than us.
They could spend subjective centuries figuring out AI safety.
Potentially. Creating countless copies of themselves to work on different parts of the problem. It's a vision of intelligence becoming accelerated, distributed, maybe even collective in a way we can barely conceive. Redefines mind itself.
It's mind-boggling. Teilhard de Chardin seemed to anticipate some of this way back, didn't he, with artifice?
He did, remarkably. He talked about how tools, artifice, separate the instrument from the organ, letting us amplify our abilities indefinitely without changing our biology, preserving freedom.
And his new sphere, that layer of consciousness.
Yes, this emerging global mind, a thinking layer around the Earth combining all human thought, past and future. He saw technology as potentially knitting this together, accelerating a kind of planetary self-awareness.
But not everyone embraces technology as purely positive for the spirit. Thoreau, for instance.
Thoreau's Walden is such a powerful early critique. He heard that locomotive whistle and saw it as stripping the land. Huckleberry hills are stripped, cranberry meadows raked into the city.
And he worried about the inner cost, too.
Yeah, that line. As up come the books, down goes the wit that writes them. He feared that this relentless material progress, this technological drive, was actually diminishing our deeper wisdom, our connection to nature, our very humanity.
So there's this fundamental tension. Will technology expand our consciousness or diminish it? That seems like a defining question for the future of spirituality.
It absolutely is. How do we integrate these incredibly powerful tools without losing ourselves. It's a tightrope walk.
And alongside technology, there's the whole shift towards secularism. How is that changing the spiritual landscape? People seeking meaning outside traditional religion.
That's another massive shift. Charles Taylor, who's analyzed in Our Secular Age, talks about this present condition where many people live for purely immanent goals. No reference to the transcendent.
Exclusive humanism, he calls it.
Right, where the idea of God might be eliminated entirely for many. But Taylor also says we're cross-pressured, caught between doubt and belief. We might not be sure about God, but we kind of assume if he exists, he probably means well. Certainty is gone.
And this opens the door for spirituality without religion.
Definitely. Sam Harris's book, Waking Up, is explicitly about that, finding profound spiritual experience without the dogma. And Paulin's work on psychedelics fits here too, exploring mystical states scientifically, not theologically, experience over institution.
But William James warned against explaining away these experiences too easily, right? Medical materialism.
He did. He found it illogical to dismiss the spiritual significance of an experience just because you could point to a physiological cause, like a disordered colon or brain chemistry.
Because all mental states have physical correlates.
Exactly. Whether it's enlightenment or eating breakfast, there's brain activity involved. James argued the biological base doesn't negate the transformative power or meaning of the experience itself. It just shows its multifaceted nature.
That's such an important point. Even someone like Richard Dawkins, using the thought contagion metaphor,
Suggesting ideas, including religious ones, spread like viruses.
he still acknowledges their power, even while being critical. But he adds that critical point. How an idea spreads says nothing about whether it's true or good.
Right. So this secular age isn't necessarily erasing spirituality. It's transforming it, making it more diverse, more individualized, often disconnected from institutions, explored through science, psychology, philosophy. It's a really dynamic, evolving scene.
And one more major current shaping the future spirit: ecological consciousness, that growing sense of connection to the planet.
This feels increasingly vital, a recognition that our fate is tied to the Earth's fate. John Kabat-Zinn points out how ancient wisdom traditions, from yogis exploring inner nature,
Can help counterbalance our modern drive to control and subdue nature.
exactly, help us remember we're part of nature, not separate masters of it. It calls for a shift from domination to reverence, to honoring our interdependence.
And Jason Hickel's Less is More connects this directly to our economic system.
He delivers a really sharp critique of how our whole economic infrastructure, corporations, markets, government policies is built around this relentless growth imperative.
Which inevitably leads to exploiting the planet.
Right. He argues we need to fundamentally rethink our economic model if we're serious about ecological sustainability, linking economic justice directly to planetary health.
Teilhard de Chardin also saw life and planet as deeply interwoven evolutionarily.
He did. He talked about how the emergence of the biosphere fundamentally changed the planet's chemistry, making life's spontaneous generation impossible again. And he saw this grand movement in evolution towards greater complexity and consciousness involving all living forms, the whole planetary system.
It's a vision of cosmic planetary evolution, and even small traditional practices reflect this reverence.
Yeah, like that mantra Ram Dass mentions, used by sadhus in India to purify the ground before meditating. A simple act, but it shows deep respect for the physical place, connecting inner practice to the sacredness of the earth itself.
So it seems like ecological awareness is becoming a powerful spiritual path in itself for many people, a convergence of science and ancient intuition.
I think so. Understanding ecosystems scientifically reinforces those older spiritual feelings of being part of a vast, interconnected web of life. Our spiritual well-being and the planet's well-being are increasingly seen as two sides of the same coin. Hashtag outro.
Wow. Okay. What a massive arc. Thinking back over not just today, but this whole season, this whole century of deep dives into the living library.
It really has been incredible. And stepping back like this, you really do see those profound common threads binding so much of it together.
That call inwards to stillness, the absolute insistence on ethical living, the deep quest for self-knowledge, and just that raw yearning for connection, for meaning.
It's undeniable. But then so are the divergences, how people picture God or ultimate reality worlds apart sometimes, how they transmit wisdom, how they make sense of suffering, our place in it all. It's this incredibly rich, complex tapestry.
You see the Jain monk memorizing scripture for dear life, the Christian mystic lost in rapture, the yogi meticulously managing inner energies, the modern scientist probing consciousness with new tools.
And underneath it all, that same fundamental human drive
Hmm.
to understand, to find purpose. It just doesn't go away. It seems elemental to being human.
So looking forward, with AI potentially redefining intelligence, with secularism changing the rules of belief, what's next? What new kinds of spiritual quests are bubbling up?
Will we manage to blend technology and ecology? Find new ways to balance the personal journey with the communal need? Feels like we're right on the cusp of some major shifts.
Or maybe entirely new paths, things we can't even imagine yet, will become the next big chapters in this library.
It's wide open, and that's maybe the most exciting part. The library is still very much alive, still being written.
And we invite you, listening, to think about your own chapter in that ongoing story. What does your quest look like? Thank you so much for joining us for this 100th deep dive and for this whole season. It's been an amazing ride.
Truly amazing. We can't wait to see what pages get turned next.